Hello and welcome to the Learn How to See Better podcast, the only podcast out there known to actually improve your vision the longer you listen. This is your host, Drew Davis, and I'm glad you've joined me here today. I can't wait to share some great information with you about how to improve your health, wealth, and relationships. So let's get right down to it, shall we? Hello again, everyone, and welcome back. This is Drew Davis, and this is the Learn How to See Better podcast, the podcast that helps you increase your vision the longer you listen. Thanks again for joining, and in today's episode, we are continuing our discussion around life vision and how you organize one. How do you put together a structure for your life that you could attempt to follow and give you the results that you're looking for? Even if we look way on out to say 2030, well, it sounds pretty cool because it is pretty cool, and it's something that has structure and design that we can all follow. As I've been taking us through in the last several episodes, I show and talk about the key components to how we get to this point, how you combine the right values and focus and outlook to be able to create a picture or a glimpse or a hazy image, at least, of what the year 2030 looks like for you. And granted, many people have never thought this big, never thought this far ahead. They just lack the vision to see that far along. And I talked about that in the last episode. Your 10-year target should be so magnificent and grandiose of a goal or a target that it scares you, that you recognize you cannot do or attempt or even come close to achieving that thing if you were to attempt it in a single try today, because you're not the person you need to become to reach that goal. If you were, you'd already have. As the old saying goes, be, do, and have. So we must become someone and do the things that the someone we want to become does, and then we'll have what the individuals who have become and done what needs to be done will have. Be, do, have. So what I've found is that a 10-year target is so far out for most people, even if they can concoct a hazy image of it, you still have to go through the process of putting together, I would say, even a more shorter or medium-term target. Let's say if we just looked out 3 years. And how would you go about doing that? Well, for one, you wouldn't have maybe quite as ambitious a goal, but if you had something set for 10 years out, what would be so grandiose about it that you couldn't conceptualize 3 years into that journey, right? If you're trying to, fly to the moon and get there in 10 years, 3 years in, you would imagine you made some sort of progress. So let's say you're walking across the country. Let's just pick some random example. I'm walking from LA to New York, and I think it's going to take a really long time to get there. Well, a third of the way into the journey, or 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days, and in this case, long-term vision, 3 years, we would see the beginning of some changes in our lives. So if I were to say 10 years from now, we are living an abundant and luxurious life, and since we are entrepreneurs that have a focus on income-based or cash flow investments, hey, we have a goal that by 2030, we're completely living off of passive income. And there's no qualms about that can be created. And I mean, I'm talking about at a level that's numerically sufficient for the lifestyle we want to live. And for the idea of being able to generate a 6-figure passive income on a monthly basis sounds incredibly untouchable right now for us, starting today. And I'm talking about net, not gross, right? So that seems big, that seems hairy, that seems audacious. But if I were to look just 3 years out, I could say that fair to assume that our life would look like this. We're luxurious. We're having luxurious travel worldwide. with exotic hikes of mountains and other scenic adventures, new experiences. The idea that our life looks like we're enjoying a strong and passionate marriage. Our life looks like we play an active role raising our children. Our life looks like we spend quality time with our loved ones. Our life looks like we're providing value to the world through inspired messages. And our life looks like we're having more fun, making more money than we're having fun spending. And that's just a handful of things that we were able to come up with that determine what our life looks like. See, we're very visual creatures, human beings, that is, right? So I could put some resume or some stat sheet or put a financial statement down that says, yep, this is exactly what our life looks like on paper. You can't really justify a quality of life by a piece of paper or by a bank statement or by a degree or any other set of accolades. So we wanted to paint pictures of what are the things that we find ourselves doing. And again, I'm sharing these things with you not to say that these are great. They're great for me. They might not be great for you, but it's to show you how you can paint a description of a picture of what your life will look like. And it doesn't, none of those things that I just shared had any numbers attached to them, no dollar amounts. I didn't call out a specific country. I didn't call out a specific number of children. I didn't call out the number of hours of quality time, right? No, those are too specific. All I know is that we're having fun, we're enjoying life, we're getting the most out of the pleasures and treasures of life that we have to be able to live and all that life has to offer for us. And that's what we see coming together. And the fact of the matter is, we're already enjoying a good portion of that now. But the idea is these things that are going on now that are great in our life will continue. They'll still be going on 3 years from now. But the important piece is that they're still going on and increasing or improving, because that's going to be necessary as we gravitate towards that 10-year target. And so that's what I would say is probably the easiest thing for all of you. Once you have those fundamental pieces put together, once you're clear on what the values are that sit deep within your heart, that are hard-coded, I guess I could call them heart-coded, and you know what your focus is, you know what your purpose, your cause, your passion is, you have your eyes locked in on what 2030 is going to be for you. And with the right outlook, you can easily come together with a glimpse, a much clearer glimpse than, say, 10 years out, 3 years out, because you know that if I'm aiming that direction to hit and achieve these things a decade from now, what does life need to be like currently to even make that a legitimate expectation? No different than if you're, trying to be a championship sports team, right? Even for, you could break this down and say, okay, even for 1 year, well, a third of the way through the season, you would imagine that team's at least got a winning record, right? If they're going to win it all. So the same thing here. If you're planning to be just knocking it out of the park, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years from now, if it's a decade from now, 3 years in, you're starting to see the very initial glimpse or image of what your life looks like. And that in and of itself can be exciting, compelling. It feels more tangible. It's not so etched in stone with the specific numerical amounts that make you feel intimidated, but you know what it looks like. You know what the gist is. You know what the tint and the hue is of that vision. And that's what starts to get exciting, because it's a lot easier to think 3 years ahead than it is 10 years ahead. But if you started with the 10 years ahead, you can back down to the 3 years ahead and say, oh, well, yeah, that's a no-brainer, because if I'm going to be doing all that 10 years from now, 3 years out, I'll at least be up to these things, right? So that's what we were doing when we were trying to formulate that 3-year picture. We said, just give us a glimpse of what our life looks like. If we're trying to go to this place in 2030, what do things look like in 2022, as an example? And so I think that this could be the fun part, or a more fun part of the exercise, because it's still imagination, it's still visualization, it's still brainstorming, concocting, and cooking up a dream life for yourself, which is beautiful. But it's a little less stressful when it's just a few years out, because you can see more change in what your life will look like a few years out than you can a decade. We're all going to look drastically different in our physical appearance a decade from now, but 3 years in, maybe just a little bit of slight change, right? So these are the types of things that I'm sharing that I think you can apply immediately, but they stack on top of one another. So you don't really get far in one unless you tackle the others first. And that's just kind of how this thing works. And I would say that for all of you that have been listening this far and have a true, legitimate intention to have a positive impact and change on your life, you got to tune into this stuff and really take it seriously, because the sources I'm getting it from, I'm investing in myself to get access to this information to be able to implement it and improve and impact my own world, and then reinvest it in others. And in this case, all of you. Strangers, people I don't know, people I may never meet, but somebody out there needs to hear this message right now to work on their own personal vision so they can start concocting and creating the life that they want. Because you know what? I'm in your corner rooting for you. I'm cheering you on even when no one else might be, okay? And that's what we all have to recognize. We need someone in our corner, and we ought to be in our own corner. If you're not in your own corner, that's a whole different discussion. But it can be lonely out there. And if you'll just trust in the fact that there are principles out there that, whether we like them or not, or laws out there, whether we like them or not, they come true. Law of gravity, you might not believe in it, but if you're standing on that roof and you just take an extra 2 steps, guess what? And that law doesn't care if you're rich or poor, black or white, small or tall, you name it. Gravity kicks in. It's a law. It's a universal law. So I won't get too deep on you guys with the physics lesson, but really more of a motivational session just to say that take charge of your life. Take charge of your life. It's yours to live. You only get one. You're the star of the show. Shine as bright as you can and be the you that you were created to be. Step up to the challenge. You don't want to get to the end of this whole thing and meet your maker at the pearly gates and get introduced to the person you're created to be, and you're complete strangers. So with that, I'll go ahead and sign off for this episode. We will keep this thing rolling. We're getting closer and closer to something tangible, so hang in there with me. Giving you a peek at your 3-year picture, and then we'll start to see how you can even take it further from that and shorten those time frames and start to back into something near term that really begins to seem tangible. And then we start to get these concrete elements that we can use to segment and break down the micro segments of what's going to build up to being the foundation for the life of your dreams. So until next time, be sure to keep it locked in on this station. Tap that like button or subscribe button, or wherever you're listening to this, share it with a friend or post it, repost it, and all that good stuff. But the most important thing is that you take action on at least one thing that you gathered from this. Whether you agree completely with all of the views or not, the fact of the matter is, the same wind blows on us all, and time waits for no man or woman. So it is important to recognize that time keeps on ticking, so we'd be wise to make sure that we are getting the most out of this experience that we possibly can, because that's why they call it the present. It's a gift. Take full advantage of it, live it up to its full potential, and don't let anyone tell you that it can't be done and that you cannot have the success that you want to see in your life. Until next time, I look forward to seeing you all tune back in to Learn How to See Better, the podcast that will improve your vision the longer you listen. This is Drew Davis signing off. Over, out. See you next time. Thanks.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.